The observation deck hummed with nervous energy as Julia pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, watching the creature pace in its containment cell below. Behind her, Oscar frantically typed commands into his datapad, his fingers moving with practiced urgency. "Dr. Chen, step away from the window," Commander Voss barked from across the room. "That thing killed 3 colonists on Kepler-4 for 2B. It's not safe." Julia didn't move. Her dark eyes tracked the alien's movements, fluid, purposeful, nothing like the mindless beast described in the reports. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, its chitinous exoskeleton gleaming blue-black under the harsh laboratory lights, 4 arms ending in delicate claw-tipped fingers, a head that resembled polished obsidian with no visible eyes, yet it clearly saw everything. "It's not mindless," Julia said quietly. "Look at the pattern. 7 steps forward, pivot, 3 steps left, pause. It's calculating something." Oscar looked up from his screen, adjusting his glasses. "Jules, the xenobiologists ran every test. Brain scans show primitive neural activity. It operates on instinct, like a spider or like a human judging an alien by human standards." Julia interrupted, finally turning to face her research partner. "We've been studying it wrong, Oscar, all of you have." The commander crossed his arms, his military bearing radiating disapproval. "Dr. Chen, this facility is scheduled to euthanize the specimen in 48 hours. The Colonial Council has deemed it too dangerous for continued study. Unless you have compelling evidence, give me 3 days, Julia said. The room fell silent. 3 days, she repeated, to prove it's not just intelligent, but capable of complex abstract thought. Commander Voss laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "And how exactly do you plan to demonstrate that, Doctor?" Julia smiled. "I'm going to teach it chess." Oscar thought she was insane. He said as much as they stood outside the containment cell the next morning, a folding table and handcrafted wooden chess set between them and certain death. "This violates every safety protocol," Oscar whispered, eyeing the sealed door. "If it attacks, it won't." Julia's confidence belied the tremor in her hands as she set up the board. "I've watched the footage 100 times. When it killed those colonists, they were trying to capture it with neural nets. It was defending itself. That's not mindless aggression, that's tactical thinking." The airlock hissed open. The creature emerged slowly, its head tilting as it observed them. Julia sat down at the table and gestured to the empty seat across from her. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with movements that seemed almost cautious, the creature approached. It didn't sit, its physiology wouldn't allow that, but it positioned itself at the table, 4 arms hanging at its sides. Julia picked up a white pawn, held it up for the creature to see, then placed it on the board. She moved it to squares forward. Then she picked up a black pawn, extended it toward the creature. The alien's head angled, studying the piece in her hand. One delicate claw reached out, plucked the pawn from her fingers with surprising gentleness, and after a moment's consideration, placed it on the board. Not randomly, it mirrored her move exactly. Oscar's breath caught. "It's learning through observation." "Day 1, Julia murmured, moving her next piece. By the second day, word had spread throughout the station. Scientists gathered at the observation windows, watching in stunned silence as Julia and the creature played their 5th complete game. The alien had graduated from simple mimicry to actual gameplay. It made mistakes, sacrificing its queen unnecessarily, leaving its king exposed, but it learned from each error. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Yamada, the lead xenobiologist. "The neural scans indicated intelligence comparable to Earth insects." "Maybe our scans can't properly interpret non-carbon-based neural structures," Oscar suggested, his earlier skepticism replaced by wonder. "Maybe we've been looking for human pattern intelligence in a completely alien mind." On the board below, the creature captured Julia's rook with what could only be described as a decisive move. Julia smiled, conceding the piece. The alien's head bobbed up. Satisfaction. Commander Voss stood at the back of the crowd, his expression unreadable. The 3rd day arrived with dawn light filtering through the station's view. Julia had barely slept. This was their final chance. She'd taught the creature the rules, helped it understand strategy, but now came the true test. She entered the containment cell alone. Oscar protested through the intercom. Commander Voss threatened to override the locks. Julia ignored them both. She set up the board, but this time, she made the first move different from their previous games a scholar's mate set up. A trap for beginners. The creature approached, studied the board, and made its opening move. Not the response she'd taught it. Something new. Something creative. Julia's heart raced as the game unfolded. The alien wasn't just playing, it was anticipating her strategies. adapting its approach, even attempting what looked like psychological feints. 15 moves in, Julia found herself genuinely challenged. 23 moves later, the creature achieved checkmate. Julia stared at the board, then slowly began to clap. The alien's head tilted, and it did something it had never done before. It reached out one clawed hand and gently touched the back of Julia's hand. The gesture lasted only a second, but the meaning was unmistakable. Thank you. Commander Voss cancelled the euthanization order. Dr. Yamada revised 3 decades of xenobiological theory. Oscar documented every interaction, his reports causing a sensation throughout the Colonial Council. But Julia simply returned to the containment cell each day, teaching her friend new games, learning the rudiments of its own language through careful observation. She'd proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't violence or technology, it was the willingness to sit down with the unknown and offer it a hand, or in this case, a chess piece across the divide. The creature, whom Julia named Nexus, learned Grandmaster-level chess in 3 weeks. But more importantly, it taught humanity that intelligence came in forms they'd never imagined, and that true first contact began not with weapons or sensors, but with patience, respect, and a simple game that transcended the boundaries between worlds. Oscar watched them play from the observation deck, shaking his head in amazement. Humans, he muttered affectionately. Only we would try to teach an alien apex predator chess. Julia heard him through the intercom and grinned. Only humans, she agreed, moving her knight, would be crazy enough to try, and that's exactly why it worked. Nexus captured her bishop and made a sound, a chittering that Julia had learned meant amusement. Checkmate, indeed. Asterisk.